started on 1st May and ending it on the Buddha Day on 7th May. We are having Buddha Day program for a whole day, starting from 10 o'clock in the morning and ending 8 o'clock in the evening. It is a great success listening to Dhamma online. Thousands of people got benefited from online Dhamma teaching. We have heard Dhammachari Jina Rakshita, Amru Siddhi, Suchiratna, Padma Bodhi, Maitrivir Nagarjun, Lokamitra, and Nagakitu. And today we have special guests all the way from Snowdonia, North Wales, which is in United Kingdom, Dhammachari Subhuti. Subhuti was born in UK in 1947 and was ordained in Triratna Bodha Sangha in 1973. Since then, he has played a major role establishing the London Buddhist Center, which was opened in 1978, and Gohel Loka Retreat Center in Spain. He has led a retreat and taught Dhamma worldwide. Dhammachari Subhuti is not new to Indian movement. He is visiting India for last 35 years and especially supporting the development of an Indian Kula of Public Preceptor College. In 2000, he was appointed the first chair of the college, to which the order founder, Urgen Sangarakshita, handed on his responsibility as the head of the order. He is the author of a number of books on Buddhism, notably The Buddhist Vision, Sangarakshita, A New Voice in Buddhist Tradition, and Mind in Harmony. When Subhuti is not leading retreat, he is visiting centers and giving talks internationally. He lives in North Wales, and today we have great opportunity to listen to him. So I am requesting Dhammachari Subhuti on behalf of Triratna Bodha Mahasangha, India, and all the viewers. So Dhammachari Subhuti.
Priya Bhai Obeno, Namo Buddhai, Jai Bhim. Thank you very much indeed, Tejadarshan, for your introduction. Yes, I am indeed addressing you from my hermitage in North Wales. Out the window here, I've got a beautiful view of over mountains, green fields, and sheep just outside my window. And it's quite sunny today, but cold. It's just early afternoon. So very different to, I think, what you're experiencing there in India, because it must be very hot at the moment. But I'm very pleased indeed to have been asked to participate in this series of talks celebrating the Buddha Jayanti. I come to India twice a year for 3 months each time, and I was expecting to come in just a few weeks' time, but well, we're all locked down. I don't know when I'll be able to come to India next, but you can be sure that I will get here as quickly as I can, or rather get there as quickly as I can, as soon as my government and your government permit it. Maybe even earlier if I could get out of this country. But it's very good for me to be able to speak so directly to you and to address you on this really important subject of Buddhism and the cultivation of the mind. It's an important topic for every Buddhist. It's, in fact, Baba Sahib talks about this theme of cultivating the mind as being the first distinguishing feature of his own teaching. So that's quite important. When Baba Sahib was comparing Buddhism with other religions, he talked of this cultivation of the mind as being the first distinguishing feature. So he says in the Buddha and his Dhamma, the first distinguishing feature of his teachings lay in the recognition of the mind as the center of everything. The mind is the center of everything. Mind precedes things, dominates them, creates them. If mind is comprehended, all things are comprehended. Why are you here, brothers and sisters? Why am I here? You are here because your mind made that decision to come here. Something attracted you, something led you to turn on your YouTube and tune in. Why am I here? Desires that arose in my mind to communicate with my brothers and sisters in India led me here to turn on my microphone and turn on my camera. Mind precedes things, dominates them, creates them. If mind is comprehended, all things are comprehended. So cultivation of the mind includes, of course, comprehending mind. We're going to see much more about that a bit later on. Mind is the leader of all its faculties. Mind is the chief of all its faculties. The very mind is made up of those faculties. We'll see a bit more what that means. But my eyes, my ears, my nose, my thinking, my feelings, my desires, all of those are aspects of mind. Mind is the first thing to attend to is the culture of the mind. Thus, Baba Sahib. The first thing to attend to is the culture of the mind. He says culture, but culture and cultivation mean exactly the same thing. So he also says something about the relationship between the culture of the mind and society, which is very important and I think deserves to be much better known and commented upon. The aim of human society must be to enable every person to lead a life of culture, which means the cultivation of mind as distinguished from the satisfaction of mere physical wants. So the aim of human society must be to enable every person to lead a life of culture, which means the cultivation of mind as distinguished from the satisfaction of mere physical wants. Of course, where there are physical wants of such an extreme kind as we find in India today, well, it's hard to speak to those people who are starving of cultivation of the mind, but we should be feeding them. We should be creating a society in which such poverty does not exist, so that everyone can cultivate their minds. So he goes on. Therefore, the ultimate goal of man's existence is not reached unless and until he has fully cultivated his mind. Therefore, the ultimate goal of man's existence, of course, is this is old-fashioned language. Man, he means humanity, men and women. The ultimate goal of men and women's existence is not reached unless and until he or she has fully cultivated his or her mind. Yes, so society itself exists in order to enable us to cultivate our minds. And we need to work much harder to give people a basis even to start cultivating their minds, because they're deprived by inequality, by poverty, and so forth, of even that opportunity, that real purpose of our existence. And it's not until we've cultivated our minds that we've made our existence meaningful. So we could hardly have a more important topic, and I'm very pleased indeed and very grateful that it's been given to me. I don't know why, but it's a topic that is dear to my heart and one that is central to my whole life and practice. So what does it actually mean, cultivation of mind? So we've got two terms there, cultivation, mind. Cultivation comes in English from a Latin word, which is a parallel language to Sanskrit. The Latin word was collere, and cultivation, culture come from that. And collere means to grow. It's literally what a farmer does. So a farmer grows crops. So when we're talking about cultivation of mind, we're using the metaphor of growth. We're talking about our minds as if they're a plant. You know, just now I'm going to be planting some cabbages in my garden, so that I've got fresh greens all the time. So I just plant little seeds. Those seeds will grow. They will grow into plants, small plants. Those plants will grow into bigger ones, and they'll get to the point where I can start eating the leaves. So growth is what a plant does. So our minds grow as well. Our minds can grow not just in the sense of physical growth, as we grow up, our minds, lots of different connections are made in the brain in adolescence. All those different synapses are linked up in the brain, which is why in adolescence we often go through quite a lot of turmoil and quite a lot of upset and emotion, because all these new connections are being made in the brain. But when we talk about growth of the mind, we don't mean growth of the mind in an organic sense, growth of the brain. We mean something much more deep and much more interesting. And it's very significant that we are talking about growth of the mind, that we're using the metaphor, the rupak of growth as applied to mind, because it's probably the best way we can think about what we have to do. We have to grow as individuals through the cultivation of our minds. So that's cultivation. What about mind? Well, this is much more difficult to talk about, obviously. First of all, I should say mind is nothing. There's no such thing as mind. Mind is not a thing like a book or a glass or a screen. It's not an object within the external world. It's not a thing. It's a collection of processes. This is important to get clear. So when I say my mind, really, I'm not referring to anything concrete, anything that you can point to. So I could ask you that question. Where is your mind? Well, you don't even know where to start looking, do you? Where are you going to look for your mind? Because mind is a non-material substance, if you like. It's not really a substance at all. You're referring to something that is non-material. So yes, if I ask, where is my mind? What color is it? What shape is it? How much does it weigh? No answers. I can't show you a photograph of my mind. You're looking at me, you can see my head, but you can't see my mind. My mind isn't in there. Where is my mind? Well, think about it. I'm not going to explore that right now. But mind is not an object. It is that aspect of our experience which knows experience. Yes? So here I am looking at you through the television screen, and you are to me an objects out there, and I am looking at you. I know you because I have a mind. I know that you're there because I have a mind. But this non-material substance, this non-material entity is not a thing. It's a collection of processes. So many of you will be familiar with basic Buddhism. You'll know the idea of the five skandhas, the five khandhas in Pali, the five heaps into which all aspects of our experience can be grouped. So we have rupa, which is the external, the objective dimension, the things out there, the visible objects, audible objects, and so on. Then we have Vedana, which is not what we mean by Vedana in modern Indian languages. Vedana is pleasure and pain, not just pain. It's the whole range of our pleasure-pain responsiveness, our feeling responsiveness. Then we have Samya, which is our labeling of our experience, our thinking about our experience, our conceptualizing about it. Then we have Samskara, or Sankara, which is our desire, our wish. You know, in order to speak to you, I have to wish to speak to you. And then we have Vijnana, which is the consciousness that illumines my experience, that experiences, knows my experience. Yeah. So Rupa, Vedana, Samya, Samskara, Vijnana. Now, again, some of you are familiar with basic Buddhism. You'll know the Nidana chain. You know, it goes avidya or vidya, samskara, then vijnana, then nama rupa. Well, nama rupa is really mind and form. Nama here means roughly mind, name and form. So nama is the four mental skandhas. It's Vedana, Samnya, Samskara, Vijnana. So my mind is a series of processes which are all inter-involved, processes that deliver to me a hedonic response, a feeling of ow or ah, a pleasurable or painful feeling, happy, sad, those sort of things. Samnya, which is my ability to recognize what's going on in my experience, to think about it, to label it, to form theories about it, and therefore to communicate about it. Then samskara, my desires, my wishes that arise first in the mind and then express themselves in the world outside me. All of which are, as it were, focused by vijnana, the consciousness itself, which is the background to all the other aspects. Yes, so mind is a series of processes, interacting processes that are to do with our feelings about things, our thoughts and ideas about things, our desires, and our awareness. All of that is nama, is mind. But yes, we usually think of mind as me. We usually think, I am looking at you, as if my mind is me. But of course, the Buddha taught us that there's no such thing as I. This is one of the most important of the Buddha's teachings, in complete contrast to the culture around him. And this is still true today for you in India. In India, generally, people believe in an Atman, a soul, a real me. But in Buddhism, we say there's no such thing. There's only a set of processes that are constantly changing. And as Baba said, points out, because they're constantly changing, they can change for the better. If there was something fixed, we'd be eternally stuck. You know, the caste system depends upon this idea of Atman. We're sort of stuck in a particular state of I. But in Buddhism, we don't see it like that. We see everything about us as capable of change, capable of transformation. So these are conditioned processes that are arising and passing away. So when we say our duty, the first duty is to cultivate the mind, what we're trying to do is make all these processes, these conditioned processes, grow together. So they all become finer, they all become more accurate, they all become more loving, they all become sharper, clearer, and so on. But yes, we need to get that a bit clearer, don't we? We're talking about growing the mind, culture of the mind, cultivating the mind. Growing towards what? What are we growing our minds towards? What are we trying to get our minds to become? You know, if we've got a plant, well, we know that the plant is growing towards the sun. It's as it were growing till it puts forth a flower and then a seed and then grows again. So what is our growth? What is our culture all about? Our culture of the mind. You could say, why cultivate the mind? What are we cultivating it for? Well, the short answer that goes right back to the Dhammachakra Pravatana Sutta, the short answer is we're trying to cultivate our minds so that we can avoid suffering. We can indeed escape fully from suffering and find eternal happiness. We can find paramang sukhang, the ultimate happiness, which is found in nirvana. So yes, this takes us very deep indeed. Buddhism teaches that all suffering and happiness comes from the mind. Of course, we know that other people cause us suffering. We know, for instance, there are people starving in India today. It's not because of their minds that they're suffering, not directly. It's because of the actions of others. It's because of the virus itself that has created a situation, and so on. So there are external objective factors, other kinds of conditioning factors that do bring suffering to us immediately. But in a deeper sense, in a much deeper sense, the Buddha teaches, it's our own actions that ultimately bring suffering and happiness to us. We suffer, we are happy because of our own minds. If we were able to control our minds, if we cultivated our minds, we would deal with difficult situations so much better. We deal with them in much more adequate ways. We'd be able to deal with them in ways that were good for us and that did not harm us. While we live, suffering is inevitable. While we have a body, suffering is inevitable. And according to traditional Buddhist teaching, we've got a body because of our own mental activity, but that's another story. So our own actions ultimately bring suffering and happiness to us. Baba Sahib makes this clear in that same passage. Whatsoever there is of evil, connected with evil, belonging to evil, that issues from the mind. Whatsoever there is of good, connected with good, belonging to good, all issues from the mind. If one speaks or acts with a pounded mind, pounded here means with a negative mind, then affliction follows him as the wheels of the cart follows the feet of the bullock who pulls the cart. So Baba Sahib's here paraphrasing the very first two verses of the Dhammapada. All our suffering comes on the basis of our own actions. This is karma. Of course, not directly, but indirectly. It's a larger question. So the cleaning of the mind is therefore the essence of religion. So Baba Sahib is saying that all our suffering in the end comes from our own unskillfulness. Not, as I say, in the literal sense that the virus gets us because of our evil, but we're here in this life where you can get that virus because of our own past actions. So our actions now and in the past determine our experience as it unfolds. So if we want to escape from suffering, we have to transform our minds so that we no longer generate a karma that brings suffering to us. So our own actions ultimately determine our happiness and unhappiness. So if we want to live happily, if we want to be fulfilled, if we want to avoid at least mental suffering, we need to deal with our own minds. But is it as simple as that? Can I really be happy if you are not? You know, for instance, here I am, I'm locked down in North Wales. It's very beautiful out here. It's very peaceful. All my neighbors are really good. They'll all help me. I'll help them. There's nothing disturbing here at all, nothing at all. Just sometimes a cloud comes in the sky. It's so beautiful, so peaceful, so pleasant. Britain is a rich country, so it's relatively well ordered, and you know, I get my pension and so on. So I've got it very good. I can sit here in isolation. I can spend my time meditating, studying the Dhamma, and so on. But I know what the situation is like outside here. I know what it's like. I know what it's like in India, for instance. I've been following very closely, both through the news and through my friends who are trying to help people who are desperate for food and have no money. I know what it's like for many people in the world right now, especially because of this virus, but not only this virus. So that disturbs me. I can't be fully happy here whilst I know what's going on outside. And even if I didn't literally know, I'd sort of feel it. It would affect me. So cultivation of the mind cannot just be for my own good. I can't be happy if you are not. I can't be happy knowing that there's injustice, oppression, and terrible suffering in the world. I have to feel that I can do something to help all that, that I'm contributing to its relief. Otherwise, my mind is oppressed. That's the nature of our human consciousness. We're all interlinked. Unfortunately, we often put shutters down so that we don't see the sufferings of others. We close ourselves off from it. But actually, it always gets through. It always gets through. So really, you cannot be fully happy yourself while others are suffering. The Buddha Dhamma says it's not enough to develop our own minds so that we become happy. We must develop a mind that is selfless, that is not just concerned with I, that is concerned with the removing of suffering for all, bringing all to fulfillment. In other words, we must be contributing to that society that Baba Sahib speaks of, that is existing for the cultivation of the minds of the individuals within it. We must be doing our best to contribute to that. Otherwise, we can't be happy. We'll still be afflicted. We can shut our minds off from it, but we feel it somewhere underneath it. Huh? A bit like when you've hurt yourself very badly, and you're in the middle of a game of kabaddi, and you've hurt yourself, but you go on playing. It's hurting you, but you want to play. You don't allow yourself to notice it. When you stop, there is the pain. So we just get on with trying to be happy ourselves, and we don't notice the pain that the sufferings of others actually does cause us quite directly. But in the Buddha Dhamma, we deliberately open up to that. We deliberately open ourselves to the sufferings of the world, and we see our own development, our own cultivation, our own growth of the mind in terms of contributing to the release from suffering of all beings. This is very, very important. It's said that what we're doing is developing a special kind of mind. This mind is called Bodhi Chitta. Chitta, of course, means mind. Bodhi means awakening, as in Bodhgaya, as in Buddha. It means enlightening. So you could say it's the enlightening mind, the mind that is waking up, the mind that is waking up to what lies beyond I. Usually we're just enclosed in our selfishness. We don't see the world around us. We're so focused on me and my satisfaction, my happiness. Fair enough, it's part of our nature. But with bodhicitta, we're trying to open up to the whole world of beings, to all life. And we're trying to live our lives in relation to all life. I think it's interesting in this lockdown phase. I don't know whether you're experiencing this yourselves, but my impression is that for a very rare moment in human history, everybody is acutely conscious of everybody else. You're all locked down. We're all locked down here in Britain. I was in Brazil. I went to do a group in Brazil just on Saturday, and they're all locked down. I went to Ireland yesterday morning. They're all locked down. But we're all aware that we're all in the same situation, and we're all facing the same difficulties. So there's a wonderful moment when the world is united, as it usually is not. Of course, it's not perfect, and there's much that limits it. But bodhicitta is a little bit like that, only much, much more so. One is very strongly linked to all beings everywhere, and especially acutely aware of their suffering. So the bodhicitta is this mind of awakening. It's the mind that's based on enlightenment, that is concerned with the ultimate well-being of all, not just of I. And it's having this mind that makes one a bodhicitta, a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is one who has bodhicitta, whose mind is bodhicitta, whose mind is selfless. whose mind does not always come back to I. That's what our minds do. I'm speaking to you, I'm trying to communicate with you, but of course, all the time I'm thinking, how are you finding me? How do you see me? What's this like for you? Am I coming across well? Are you thinking, oh, he's so good, he's so clever, and so on? Maybe you're thinking something similar too. As I'm speaking, you're referring back to yourselves. That's what we ordinary beings do. Bodhisattva doesn't do that. The Bodhisattva doesn't circle everything back to I. The Bodhisattva sees all beings and is concerned with all beings, self included, but not just self. So that's the mind of the Bodhisattva. That's what it's like. It's different to our mind. That's why we have to develop it. And of course, it's because of this mind that we refer to Baba Saheb as Bodhisattva. We call him Bodhisattva, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, because we see that in his actions, he exhibited this bodhicitta. He was not just living for himself. I've often thought Baba Saheb could have been a very, very wealthy man. He could have made so much money from his legal practice. He could have made so much money from politics. Many politicians make a lot of money from their politics. But Baba Saheb had so little money at the end, he couldn't afford to publish the Buddha and his Dhamma, and he appealed to the Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, for funds to do so, which unfortunately he did not get. But it just shows it's a man who did not think about his own well-being. He didn't think about his own welfare, didn't think about his own wealth. He just thought, what can I do to help others? And he worked tirelessly. Arguably, he killed himself in the end because he was a very sick man. And if he'd perhaps rested much more and taken more care of himself, maybe he'd have lived longer. But that's typical of the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva doesn't think I, the Bodhisattva thinks all. And it's this mind that we need to cultivate. We need to cultivate the bodhicitta because it's this mind that will give us the greatest happiness and satisfaction. It will bring us freedom from suffering, but it will also enable us to benefit so many other beings. If we act on that spirit like Baba Saheb did, we'll be able to affect the lives of countless millions. Baba Saheb died now more than 60 years ago, and yet his influence is more powerful now than it was during his life. So many more people now are influenced by his work. So many more people are uplifted by it and are able to escape their suffering, at least at the social level, to some degree because of Baba Saheb. And many more are finding Buddhism and finding in Buddhism the path that they need to make themselves a full human being and make themselves something more than a human being. So a great bodhisattva, a great selfless being based upon bodhicitta can have an enormous impact on the world. And I do believe that what the world needs more than anything is bodhisattvas. If we have enough bodhisattvas, we can really change the world. So we're cultivating our ordinary minds so that they become bodhi mind, bodhicitta. That is the purpose of our cultivation of the mind. We're cultivating our minds for our own benefit because as we develop our minds, we'll escape from suffering. All our suffering is based on self-attachment. It's based on craving. When we go beyond that, we don't suffer. And so, yes, cultivating bodhicitta will give us release from suffering. But cultivating bodhicitta will also benefit so many other people, everybody we come in contact with. And if we work hard together, we can influence millions and millions, crores and crores of people. We can influence the whole world, as great man like Baba Saheb did, like our own teacher, Urgyen Sangharakshita, did. He's created this movement within which we're now talking. So this is the action of bodhisattvas. And this is why we need to cultivate our minds. So now, how do we cultivate our minds? Of course, first of all, we need to cultivate our minds in the most basic senses. We need to cultivate our minds, learning, if you like, fundamental life skills, cooking, driving, washing, all the sort of things that everybody needs to be able to do. Everybody should be able to cook, every men and women. Everybody should be able to drive if they can get hold of a car. Everybody should be able to wash their clothes and do housework. Everybody should be able to do basic money management, accounting, if you like, at the ordinary level. We should have those life skills because they make us more capable and they make us more effective and they enable us to help others. They make us more practical. So we should be cultivating these life skills, as I call them. Nowadays, of course, we need to know how to use a computer, how to use a mobile phone and the smartphone, how to protect ourselves from viruses on the computer, let alone in outer world. We need to know basic health. It's all life skills, how to get good exercise so our bodies are fit and well. So these are indirectly cultivating the mind. The more active and effective you are, the healthier you are, the better you feel. Sometimes people come to me saying, "Oh, I feel really depressed," and so on. So I ask them, "What exercise have you done today?" And nearly always they say, "Oh, no, I haven't done anything. I've just been looking at my computer all day." So I just tell them, go for a run, do some yoga, do some qigong, go for a long, fast walk, do some jumping up and down on the spot, because immediately you feel happier. And there are chemical reasons for that. Endorphins are released in the brain that make you feel better, make you feel happier. And when you're happy, your mind is more easy to work with. An unhappy mind is sort of closed in, shut in. So one needs to do whatever one can to enliven the mind. But then we move on to much more directly mental cultivation, which is the sort of thing that we get through our educations, learning to think clearly, learning to reason, learning about the world. For instance, I think it's extremely important, especially in India, that people learn about history, learn accurate history. History nowadays is politics. Politicians fight over what is history. I noticed that in Hungary, for instance, this very oppressive right-wing government that's come into power there immediately starts rewriting the history books. And they rewrite it in such a way that the gypsy people who've been in Hungary no shorter time than the other white people there, so the gypsy people are just wiped out. They don't exist in the history. So the people who form history are the victors. As has often been said, it's the victors who write history. Well, what is the real history of India? For instance, what is the real history of Buddhism in India? It's a much, much richer and more complex history than we know. After all, it was only in the 19th century, mid-19th century, mainly from British and European scholars, that we came to know about the life of the Buddha in India. So when you forget history, you forget who you are. Well, Baba Sahib says, doesn't it? If you don't know history, you can't make history. So history is a very, very important topic for us today, especially us Buddhists today, wanting to bring about a better society, a Dhammachari. We need to know the history of India, the history of the world. We need to know it here too, in Britain. It's important for us to know, for instance, in Britain, that we white people are not always in these islands. We came from Africa, just like the black people who are coming now. And this island is made up of invaders who come and come and come. So when you think like that, you can't think, we are the Bhumi Putra. We are the sons of this soil. We are the ones who have the right to it. Nobody has the right to the soil. It's constantly being claimed and reclaimed. So we need to know our history. Of course, we need to know basic economics, how the world works in terms of the economy. just a basic understanding of international trade and things like that. All very, very important for us. Basic knowledge about sociology, basic knowledge about psychology. Everybody should have some grasp of all of this, because you're making your mind much more flexible, much more versatile. It's able to work in many more ways, and you're able to deal with a situation around you. So if you're a bodhisattva and you have this sort of knowledge, well, then you're going to be much more able to go into a situation and help bring something better out from it. Personally, I try always, when I go somewhere new, to read up about it. So for instance, before I did this program with this talk with the Dhammachari in Sao Paulo in Brazil, I read up about Brazil, about its history, about its present politics. So I was able to talk to them a little bit on the basis of that knowledge. And so they then felt more of a connection with what I was speaking about. So we need these skills, both in order to have a good job and to live a good life in that way, but also so that we can be more effective at bringing about positive transformation within society. And I'm putting all of this under the heading of the development of the mind, cultivation of the mind, developing intellectual skills, so you can tell that argument is not right. Yes, because you've got enough logic, Tarkashastra. You've understood enough of it to be able to see that doesn't follow from that. 1 and plus 1 does not mean 3. 1 and 1 makes 2. So we need to develop our capacity to think in this sort of way, and to be intellectually clear and sharp, to recognize wrong views, wrong ideas, so they don't colonize our minds, and so that we can help others to get them out of their minds. All colonization is first and foremost a colonization of the mind. The British, when they came to India, persuaded the Indians that they were inferior to the white people. Not very well, of course, but that's what they thought, and they tried to promote that idea. And when Indians began to realize, well, this is not true, and to claim India for themselves, well, the British had to go. So all colonization, I call caste a kind of colonization, is a colonization through ideas. So we have to know those ideas and be sharp and clear, recognize them, not be fooled by them. So many stupid ideas on the internet, so many stupid ideas on WhatsApp, even amongst us, such foolish ideas. And we all need to develop that sharp clarity of thinking so we can discern them, so we can really create something better, not just another bad version. Then we need emotional and aesthetic development. The life of the mind is not just the life of the intellect, it's the life of the heart. Mind is as much heart as it is head, if you like. So we need to be developing ourselves emotionally, aesthetically, so that we're appreciating beauty. We're appreciating fine art, music, painting, poetry, film. Film is one of the great media of our day. I personally love watching really good art films. Like this week in India on YouTube, there's a Satyajit Ray a series. Satyajit Ray is the greatest of Indian filmmakers that I know of. And his films are not just good stories, they're beautifully shot. And there's always a great depth of meaning and a depth of humanity. So watching the film, you learn something about humanity itself, about human feeling, human interaction, human relations. Personally, I've been watching a number of films here during the lockdown. I watched a very, very good film, you may be able to get it in India, called The Two Popes, which is about the last Pope and the present Pope, who the last Pope retired, which they never do. And the two of them started off as enemies, a conservative and a reformer, but they ended up deep, deep friends. So you have an exploration on the screen of spiritual life, its relation to institutions, its relation to society. So you come out of it a better person. You've grown through it. So this is the effect of art, of real art. When you listen to it, you grow. Your mind grows. The greatest of the artists, people like Satyajit Ray or Ravi Shankar. I saw some new music that had been discovered by Ravi Shankar, a very great sitar player. And it's on another level of human experience. We heard at the Buddha Festival in Nagpur at the Dikshabhumi, we heard Amjad Ali Khan, absolutely extraordinary music that took you into another level of consciousness. So we need to cultivate our minds through art, through making a beautiful environment, through reading good literature, good novels, good poetry, feeding ourselves so that we grow. If you want a plant to grow, you have to give it manure. Well, we need that sort of manure so that our minds expand through this interaction with great art. Of course, as Buddhists, we know we can take this much, much further. We can take this much further through the practice of meditation, because art works indirectly. We're watching something out there and it has an effect on us inside. But with meditation, you work directly on your own mind. By concentrating your mind, say through Anapanasati, you raise the level of your consciousness so that you experience things in a new way, on a new level. Your mind is expanded. It's purified, yes, because you're removing yourself from the hindrances, the nivarana, the negative mental states. You're rising above them into a state of mind in which they do not exist. And you're training yourself to operate more and more from that expanded, highly positive, very concentrated and clear mental state, where the mind is very flexible. It can take in what is new without resistance. It's not prejudiced. It's very agile. And thereby, yes, one can free oneself from these negative poisons that we so often operate within. And you get an experience of what a higher state of consciousness can be. So through Anapanasati, you can get into that state. Through Maitri Bhavana, our other main basic practice, you cultivate states of Maitri. Maitri for yourself, for a friend, a neutral person, even an enemy. And then you expand out that Maitri to all living beings. And at this point, you're beginning to touch on bodhicitta. The mind that you're beginning to experience now is a selfless mind, because you're going beyond just I. You're beginning to experience Maitri as the nature of your mind, not just something you're trying to do. Maitri is something flowing through your mind. It even is your mind, you could say. So the practice of meditation is an extremely important way of raising the level of your mind, of growing your mind. You can probably grow your mind more through meditation than any other way, although you probably need to do a lot of work in other ways as well in order for meditation to really work, meditation to really be successful. But it needs to go further than that, because the problem with meditation in the way that I've described it is that it only lasts as long as you're making an effort. You make an effort, you concentrate your mind, you get into this very peaceful, happy, clear state of mind. You stop making an effort, back you go. And your mind is just as clouded, just as irritable or craving or whatever as usual. Maybe not quite as much, but it very easily slips back into that. So we need to go further. We need to do something that finally gets rid of the tendency to slip back. And this is what we mean, we call vipassana practice, the vipassana dimension of meditation. We get very, very concentrated, and then we try to reflect on our experience. And we try to see directly for ourselves that there is no fixed I. There's no me, no Atman inside here that's having experience. There's nothing fixed anywhere. That's why Buddhism can't believe in a God. there can't be a fixed eternal God, because nothing is fixed and eternal in that way. So we try to develop insight into the true nature of things. And once we develop that insight into the true nature of things, well, we cannot fall back. We are irreversible. We are always freed from suffering. But of course, paralleling that, we shouldn't just be liberating ourselves. We should be, as it were, taking everybody else with us. We should be developing bodhicitta alongside our cultivation of vipassana. So we cultivate bodhicitta by opening ourselves up to the sufferings of others. We have a practice in our order where we deliberately, we consciously reflect on our deep, deep connection with all sentient beings everywhere in time and space, that in the end, they're all our brothers and sisters. Even it's sometimes said, they've all been our mothers in countless existences. So they're as close to us as our mothers are to us, as our brothers and sisters are to us, as our children are to us. All other beings share essentially with us this desire to be free from suffering and to experience happiness. That's all everybody wants. But we see that even though that's what they want, just like us, they don't know how to do it. They're not aware of the way things really are. So they do all sorts of stupid things that just bring them more suffering and bring suffering to others. You know, people believe in caste, which is a stupid idea. It doesn't take much to see through it. They believe in it because they believe happiness depends upon it. They believe that, you know, their future lives and so forth all depend on their caste. They believe that their status in the world depends upon caste. It doesn't. It's wrong. It comes out of ignorance. So we see all sorts of ways. We are ignorant too. And because of our ignorance, we act foolishly, which brings us more suffering. So we open ourselves up in this practice to the tragedy of existence. And we recognize that there's only one way out. That one way out is going for refuge to the three jewels. That one way out is growing the mind, cultivating the mind until it is free. And so we determine, we commit ourselves to cultivating our minds with all other beings, as it were, bringing them all with us. So we say again and again to ourselves, with all beings, I go for refuge to the three jewels. With all beings, I go for refuge to the three jewels. So in this way, we're bringing about the mind of bodhicitta, which is, I would say, that the ultimate meaning and purpose of cultivation. Of course, bodhicitta leads to Buddhahood, but Buddhahood itself is the fulfillment of bodhicitta. So yes, we need to be working to cultivate the mind on all these different levels. And when we get to those deeper levels, we begin to see much more deeply what the nature of mind is. At the beginning of this talk, I asked, well, what is mind? And I talked in terms of the four skandhas that make up nama. Do you remember? Vedana, Samya, Sankhara, and Vijnana. That is mind in a functional sense. But at this higher level that we've been talking about, you can begin to see mind much more directly. You can look much more directly into the nature of mind, and you can see more and more clearly what mind is. First of all, you see that mind is, as I put it to begin with, it's not a thing. It has no atman. In Buddhist philosophy, it's described as shunya, empty of anything fixed. It's not vacuous. It's not a nothing, but it's empty of anything fixed. There's nothing in mind that is not changing. Mind is a continuous stream of awareness. Vijnana sota, it's called in the Pali Canon. Vijnana shrota. It's a continuous stream of awareness which flows on, never stopping, never if fixing at any point, with nothing in it that is completely stable. So at this stage, we're able to open up to the Vijnana Sota, the stream of consciousness, the stream of awareness, flowing like a river. The river is never the same. One famous Greek philosopher lived at the same time as the Buddha said, you cannot step into the same river twice, because we call it the river Indriyani or Ganga or whatever. We call it that, but it's not a thing. It's a continuous moving flow of water. Even all the sand on the bed is moving too. So mind is like that. Awareness itself has nothing fixed about it, and therefore it can change, it can transform. We can see also when we look deeply into mind, into consciousness, we can see it's capable of being completely pure. What is impure, what is sinful, what is evil is not part of mind. It's a reaction at another level. It's the reaction of our ignorance. Mind itself is pure. Mind itself has no defilement. So if we can rest in that nature of mind, then we'll be pure. The same we can say that the mind is capable of complete clarity. Our ignorance is something that's added on to us. It's acquired. Doubt is acquired. Ignorance is acquired. It's something we learn and that we've carried with us through many lifetimes, the Buddhist tradition would say. But if we can look at mind itself is not ignorant. It's how we interpret, how we, as it were, filter experience that is ignorant. But mind is in its own nature completely clear. Mind is in its own nature completely loving and compassionate. Mind in its own nature is completely linked with others, just as that's what bodhicitta is about, isn't it? The sense of non-separation between self and other. So mind in its own nature, mind in its depths, when we really begin to explore the nature of mind itself, it is loving. Mind itself is blissful. Nibbana, Nibbanam paramang sukham. Nibbana is the highest happiness. Well, that Nibbana is the realization of mind's true nature. So mind in itself is blissful. Our suffering comes because of our ignorance and our foolishness. If we can get below that, if we can clear that away through meditation, through vipassana, through all our work, through studying the Dhamma and so forth, we can begin to see mind's true nature, which is clear, pure, empty of anything fixed, loving and blissful. That's our own minds, which is what we'll experience more and more as we cultivate our minds. In the end, we'll be cultivating our minds in their greatest depth. A mind in its own nature is radiant, shining, luminous, it's said. This is the mind of the Bodhisattva, the mind of the Buddha. What we have to do is to get to that. We have to cultivate our minds till we get to that point. And we have to bring everybody else with us so that we're all cultivating our minds and we're all beginning to realize the true nature of mind, the true possibility of mind. And yes, then of course we'll have achieved all our goals, the goal of everybody: ultimate happiness, ultimate freedom, ultimate creativity. That is what we're cultivating our minds for. Of course, there's an enormous amount of work to do. It is not the work of a day, this cultivation, but it is what human society is for. I remind you of what Baba Sahib said, and perhaps this now has greater meaning. The aim of human society must be to enable every person to lead a life of culture which means the cultivation of mind as distinguished from the satisfaction of mere physical wants. A good human society is one that enables all its members to cultivate their minds as far as it's possible to go. He goes on, therefore, the ultimate goal of humanity's existence is not reached unless and until all have fully cultivated their minds. That is the whole purpose of this society. And we must always remember this, because so often our struggle is for justice, is for political freedom, is for equality, liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, all these very important political goals. But why are we struggling for these? When we've achieved them, what will life be? It has to be something more. And Baba said makes that absolutely clear. What we're struggling for ultimately is the cultivation of the mind of every citizen, of every member of society, to the ultimate degree. So while we're here celebrating the life of the Buddha, the enlightenment of the Buddha, of course, who was the first to realize fully the potential of the mind and the first to fully cultivate his mind, let us, each and every one of us, dedicate right now, here and now, ourselves to that great struggle to create a just and free society in which everybody is able to cultivate their minds. And let us, at the same time, be cultivating our minds and supporting others in the cultivation of their minds, remembering all the time that mind in its ultimate nature is radiant, is luminous, is loving, is pure, is clear, and all wise. And I'm very glad to have spoken to you about this really important topic, and I hope that you will all find some benefit in it, and that you will find some incentive to make greater efforts to cultivate your minds. Thank you very much. Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim.
धन्यवाद Dhammachari Subhuti ji for guiding us, enlightening us on the theme of cultivation of mind and Buddhism. It was very useful and inspiring speech you have given to us. So thank you again. As I have mentioned before, we are celebrating this Buddha Jayanti festival for a week. So tomorrow we are having theme Buddhism and youth. And two young Dhammacharis going to speak on this theme. In the morning, 11:30, we are having Dhammachari Jinasiddhi from Gujarat. And in the evening, Dhammachari Anamashura from Nagpur at 7 o'clock. These both talks will be hosted by Dhammachari Sudipta. And on the 7th, we are having whole day program. Program will start 10 o'clock and finishes at 8 o'clock in the evening. So we have 3 talks. 11 o'clock, Dhammachari Kumarji. 4 o'clock, Dhammachari Lokamitra. 7 o'clock, Dhammachari Amok Siddhi. We are going to do meditation on Buddhanusmurti and also some cultural program. So I hope you are going to visit us and enjoy this program. Also on 9th May, there is worldwide celebration of Buddha Jayanti, starting from Auckland, New Zealand. And that is the Buddha wave, going through all the way from New Zealand, Singapore, China, India, Arabian countries, East Europe, European countries, UK, Ireland, Brazil, America. So we are going to end in San Francisco, USA. So you can see on the screen the program of the day, and you can visit that website and celebrate and feel the presence of the worldwide Sangha. So again, I thank Dhammachari Dhammachari Subhuti for guiding us this evening. And as I have mentioned before, we have started this program using this social media, using Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook, using all the existing resources. So I'm hoping you can donate generously for the Three Ratna Media India to develop it. You can see the bank details before, or you can contact Dhammachari Sudipta, Dhammachari Nagdeep, Nagaketu, Dhammachari Tej Darshan for any further information. Thank you again. Bye bye. Good night.